Hello, friends from the internet, and welcome to Nothing and Like It, the only podcast that keeps track of the UK's Frontier Wrestling Alliance through TV shows that are now legally old enough to drink, drive, and vote. I am your contorted idiot, Kieran Lefort, and can only legally do two of those things. And joining me as ever, our distorted gambler, Andy Ogden. Andy, how are you?
I'm showing all the effects of being a gambler, a drinker. Good job I don't do drugs, innit? Being a ditch somewhere.
And, of course, our peripatetic traveller, Eddie Sideburns. Eddie, how are you?
Where do you want me to begin?
Dublin?
I don't want to go
You're not
back
there
to
anymore, at least.
No, but it was nice to see two cuck chairs in a hotel room. So that's quite, it's quite nice they're opening that up instead of just having the one. I'm doing fine. I've just come back from the cinema, so I was watching this. I took a break in between the films, and I watched some more FWA for my sins. So I'm happy to be here, ready to go. Let's go, baby.
Tremendous. This month we will be finishing off the back three of the profile episodes that aired on the Wrestling Channel prior to me being given a job. But first, we have another special guest. We have advised him that he enters this recording at his own risk. Mr. Lefort, Mr. Ogden and Mr. Sideburns accept no responsibility for any terrible jokes, including this one. Please welcome the twisted genius, Dean Ayass. Dean, how are you?
Hello. Well, let's give the short answer of I'm all right, thanks, to save boring you all with long medical sob stories. I'm doing all right. Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be on here. I have listened to all of the previous episodes, and I am glad that Sumners went out of business.
I know you've listened to all the previous episodes. I get a DM running commentary anytime you've got one on. We've known each other a very long time, but I don't think I've ever asked you, how did you become a wrestling fan in the first place?
Through my dad. He was a wrestling fan way before I ever existed, and my mum has stories of him dragging her off to wrestling shows in South London where they lived, and I just remember it always being on the TV. I can't remember what the first match I ever saw was, because it was just always on 4:00 Saturday afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my mum realised that I quite liked wrestling, she would happily drive me and my dad to the Corn Exchange or the Dome or the Brighton Centre to watch the wrestling, and she could have a couple of hours of peace and quiet, and then she'd come and pick us up at the end. So it was just through that I loved wrestling, never really grew out of it. Moved on to WWF in the early 90s. A friend of mine that I'm still friends with now would get VHS videos because I didn't have Sky, and just went from there. And then I got into the business via Hammerlock, when Hammerlock were the first people to open the doors to the general public. And the very first time I ever went down there was me, my mate Mark, who's the guy who recorded WWF for us, and then two friends from London, one of whom went on to become Alexson, and the other one was Muscles Mansfield. So Alex often says that it was my fault that he got into the wrestling business, because apparently his dad wanted to know that there are other people going there and it wasn't just him on his own. So otherwise he wouldn't have let him go. So and it all sort of went from there, really. So I realised that I was not cut out to be a wrestler. But then Andre started doing a few shows, and I was sort of trading tapes with people at that time. And he said, do you want to become an MC for us? And I was jumped to the chance, and it all went from there.
Did you always want to perform in general, or was it specifically within wrestling? Like, were you a theatre kid or anything like that?
I wasn't a theatre kid, no, but I did do a few like school plays and things like that. I did like showing off a bit, but I always seemed to be one of those people that would get cast as a bit of an outrageous character. So I think even from a young age, I was like hiding behind the character, and much prefer doing like the managing and the commentary that I up till a couple of years ago, with health issues I've had. I've been commentating, and that's where you're kind of you're a character rather than you just being yourself. Out of everything, it was always wrestling that I wanted to do. I did have a brief foray into radio, and I very nearly got into professional radio, but sort of just missed out on that, and then kind of went back towards the wrestling again.
In 1995, I went to college, fresh-faced 16-year-old, and it was the first time I had internet access. And I did the thing you do when you have internet access. You just type in the search bar something you're interested in. So I typed wrestling.
Yeah.
Of course. And one of the first things that popped up was your reports of the Hammerlock tours you were on.
Rec Sports Pro Wrestling, wasn't it?
Yes.
That was it.
I had them. I put them on floppy disks to read at home. I printed them out. I read all of this stuff.
See, kids today, you don't know what we went through.
So you were at Hammerlock for quite a while, right?
Yeah, I mean the first shows that they did at their gym, which was just sort of friends and family shows, was the very end of '93, November '93, and like Doug's first show was that show. And then they went to do shows at the Leescliffe Hall in Folkestone early '94, I think sort of March '94 time. And I did shows with Hammerlock until I think the end of 1998. When I just sort of I had enough of it, really.
Because that was going to kind of lead into my next question: is why didn't you show up on the UWA stuff that Andy and I watched a couple of years ago? I wondered if it was loyalty to Hammerlock or anything like that, because like they were quite isolationist, weren't they?
Yeah, no, they're absolutely. Yeah, we never really had anyone from the outside come in. We had
unless it was a touring American like Adam Bomb.
Adam Bomb, Jim Neidhart, Jake Roberts. We had Dirt Bike Kid for one show. That was fun.
I think everybody has Dirt Bike Kid for one show. There's not a lot of Dirt Bike Kid. Will be back next month.
Yeah. No, by that point I had I'd sort of finished up with wrestling for that time, and I was trying my hand with radio. I was at university at that point and was trying to get into radio and stuff. And then I went to No Surprises 3 in the Pyramid Centre in Portsmouth, which I think would have been 2001. Kind of got bitten by the bug, and sort of made inquiries about would they be interested in having me join them. And they were, and it went from there. But I was never actually meant to be a manager. The idea was that I would come in just briefly as a manager to introduce myself to people and be established as a heel, and then I would go in as a heel commentator. I would imagine with Alan, but the only show we ever did commentary was Revival.
Yeah, twice.
Twice, yes.
Was that? Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what do you remember of like both those experiences of doing it live for the radio and then going into the studio to do the TV version like a couple of weeks later?
Well, as you, I think you might have mentioned before, I blagged my way onto the commentary of the radio version. I think Alan didn't want to do it on his own. And
you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, and I really wanted to do it. So I'm like, so I hadn't done any preparation or anything. I just sort of stuck around with him. And I was like, well, I'll stay here until someone throws me out. And no one threw me out. It was one of the most surreal experiences of my life, because you're commentating on the wrestling on the radio, and the only thing I could think of, the only thing that I had as a point of reference, and I'd never listened to them, but was, do you remember when during the Gulf War you'd get the old radio WWF things where they'd be broadcasting to the troops, I said I never heard it anyway, so I had nothing really to go by, but I really enjoyed it because I realized that what you had to do was kind of paint a picture with words, as much of a cliche as that sounds. So, it would be, Scott Parker against Alex Shane was one match I remember where it was, there was a chin lock going on in the middle of the ring, for example. And, I'd be saying, well, Parker wearing purple trunks and long blonde hair down his shoulders, and he's in the middle of the ring here, and you sort of talk about where in the ring they were, what they were wearing, what they looked like, just to give people a mental image. And it was it was really good. It was really good fun.
I guess it's just like doing real sport on the radio. You know, if it was a boxing match, you've got to describe what each boxer is wearing. You know, are they dodging? Are they weaving? Are they going for jabs? And all of that kind of thing. You know,
Exactly.
football teams as well. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, I suppose, I had experience of listening to football commentaries on the radio, so I suppose, I did have that as a point of reference. But it was really strange to be, that was literally the first time I'd ever commentated on wrestling, and I was doing it live on a nationally broadcast radio station.
Your chief role, though, was manager of the old school.
Yes.
At that point. So what are kind of like the personal highlights of that run?
Managing Christopher Daniels against Doug was a real highlight, because we just clicked immediately. And I mean, I Chris and I worked together many times in many places in the future. We always had a warm greeting for each other. We always got on well. But there were a couple of times, a couple of spots like where I remember Doug going for his Revolution DDT and Chris ducks it or dodges it or whatever, and without any kind of prompting at all, we kind of point at each other like, that's what I told you about, that's what you've scouted, and you just get that feeling of synchronicity. I only ever had that again really with Drew McDonald. So there was that. There was the tag match we had in Walthamstow, which was the end of the old school, where I got hung upside down in the corner by Ulf Herman, and got a drop kicked chair in my face. And it was really, I was dreading it, and it was actually safe as houses, because Ulf was great like that. And again, that was someone else I got on really well with. And I think just generally it was the amount of heat we would get we didn't need to try it. It just came naturally that people hated us. So I was, and again, I'd never managed before. The only thing I'd ever done in wrestling in Hammerlock, apart from I think once being an emergency referee, was emceeing. But what I realized was these things were happening and these things were coming out of my mouth. It was like I had subconsciously absorbed all this stuff from Bobby Heenan, Jimmy Hart, Paul Lee Dangerously, from watching all these years. And it was so much fun. I mean, as you know, being a heel is so much more fun than being a babyface. What
do you mean, as I know, being a heel is so much more fun than being a babyface?
I mean, it's something that, sorry, I mean, it's something I'm sure you've discussed before.
Yeah.
And also, so many of the people on the new school side were people that had come through Hammerlock with me. So you had, Alex and Doug, Johnny, Jody, Scotty Rock, your favourite Schamberg, Guy Thunder. Loads of these people who all came through, and it was. I was actually, because we were talking about this off air just before we started. I was actually at Rishi Ghosh's wedding yesterday, and one of the people I was talking to was James Ty was there, and we were saying that we didn't realise at the time what a big thing we were a part of, because you're kind of just living in the moment, and it's only really when we look back on things now that you realise how big a deal it was in British wrestling.
It's something I've tried to point out on a few shows, is like what the British wrestling landscape was at that time. Like, your options were FWA All-Star or Fake Kane is coming to your town.
Yeah.
American Wrestling Battle Royal.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
there wasn't really much else. There was a couple of feds up in Scotland, I remember, because they used to send someone down to try and get their banners up in front of FWA cameras.
Right.
No, we'll have no celebration from you, Sideburns.
Listen, you talk about fake Kane now. You look at 2024, you get about 6 different versions of Kane now.
Yes. Like the FWA did seem like the young, hip company for hardcore wrestling fans. And I think one of the reasons old school versus new school works so well is most of those fans did not want to see what they perceived as fat old men in their wrestling. They wanted work rate. They wanted ECW style. They wanted the stuff they'd been buying on tapes, not World of Sport.
Yeah, and I remember, because my first appearance in the FWA was at one of the Harrows high school shows that Barry ran.
Gracefully climbing over the barricade.
Jesus Christ, yeah. Stumbling over this barrier, yeah. But I remember the very end of that show was the big old schmoz with the old school and new school and the big brawl. And, I just kind of went out there at the end of things. And I remember saying, I think it might have been to Alex, but I remember just saying to someone, this feels like ECW because, I'd been to ECW live. I'd felt that feeling. And it was the closest thing because even with Hammerlock, where we started doing shows in the mid-90s when the business was absolutely on its arse, and you would get usually about 70 or 80 people. If you got 300 people, you'd drawn a huge house for the time.
Yeah.
And FWA was getting a few hundred, and they were, as you said, they were loud, they were enthusiastic, and you fed off that, and it made you better as a performer.
Yeah, I think the stuff off that Harrow taping was among our favourite stuff from the Portsmouth TV run. Like that great angle like you're talking about, like where they threaten to set Alex on fire and it just becomes mayhem, is still brilliant stuff.
Yeah. And that whole angle that, as you've touched on there, the whole angle is lodged in reality because there was,
because everyone wants to set Alex Shane on fire the moment they meet him.
There was this feeling of animosity between some of the old guys and the new guys, and that was being felt when your younger FWA guys were getting booked on all-star shows, and then you're having to share a dressing room with these grizzled old veterans who don't like who never like the youngsters coming up and potentially stealing their spot anyway.
Yes.
But when you're then doing a different style to what they're doing as well, that just compounds the matter.
So by the end of 2002, the old school's kind of run its course.
Yeah.
What was the pivot to pitch to Burchill, and how did you find that dynamic, like a solo rookie as opposed to a group of veterans?
Yeah, I mean, I went down to quite a few FWA Academy shows because of Justin Richards was one of the people I managed, and he was involved in a lot of the training down there. So he would often have a match with one of these youngsters, where we'd basically have the same match every month, which would just be like we would wind up this baby face to the point that he ended up like turning his back on Justin, who'd then clamp on a cross-faced chicken wing, and the crowd would hate it but would buy it every time because we were so good at just winding everyone up that you could easily understand why this person would lose their rag and lose their concentration. So I saw Burchill wrestling, and was obviously really, really impressed with him. And I remember, I can't remember if it was Mark or Alex, but I remember someone saying, he's going to come onto the main roster soon. And I knew that the old school was coming to an end, and I needed something else to do. And they, they didn't. I think the managing had worked so well, they didn't want to move me over to commentary as much as you may have liked that. But you know that old saying, why move you to commentary when you're doing so well as a manager?
Yes.
Yeah, that old saying. And so we decided we'll move me over to Burchill. And he needed that sort of extra person at ringside to start with, because he was very new and very nervous and not sure of himself. There's the very first match he has at the York Hall, there's a spot just before Joey does that kind of a flip plancher over the ring post to the floor.
Yes. Yeah.
If you watch that just before he does it, he's got his head sticking through the ropes, and he tells me to slap him in the face legit because he just needs to psych himself up for it. But within a short space of time, because Paul was then working for All Star and Premiere, and he's getting plenty of matches under his belt. I soon became redundant in that role, and I was just doing the mouthpiece. I was just doing the interviews because, as I'm sure you know, because I'm sure you've probably heard him speak since then. Paul had this very soft-spoken, quite posh Guildford Surrey
Yes.
accent, which did not fit the monster Burchill at all. So he was silent.
He was just happened to be big. He was a very soft, well-spoken, nice man.
Yeah.
I really liked Paul.
Yeah, he worked as a teacher at a special needs school. He did. Yep. He was this lovely, kind, gentle man who happens to be enormous and used to play rugby for Surrey. I think.
Yeah.
I then just became the mouthpiece and stuff. And I always remember at Uprising 3, I ended up having a very long, sort of almost an hour-long conversation with Jimmy Hart. And one of the things he told me, because obviously he'd done the babyface manager with Hulk Hogan, he was telling me how difficult and how tricky it is to be a babyface manager. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, thank fuck for that. I thought it was just me. So that was a really big reassurance. So, if Jimmy Hart's telling you it's a sucky kind of job, then it's a sucky kind of job. So quite early on, I'd say, within the first year, really, I was just doing the promos and that for Burchill. He didn't need me in the ring, and there were a few times, he did shows up north where just for cost and geography reasons, I didn't go up there with him.
I have recently rewatched an old episode of FWA TV. Because I've dug out master quality stuff to give to Lee, who we had last month, who runs the FWA Files channel, and I've been checking over them to make sure they're fine. And there is indeed a match in Morecambe where just before his entrance, we cut backstage to something we've clearly shot in Broxbourne with you and Paul going, "Who is this idiot? Why don't you go? Show me you don't mean me. Go out there and kill him by yourself." Yes. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is to cover why they haven't bothered paying for Dean to come to Morecambe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did go to Morecambe in the end. I went up there twice with Sticks and Stone, but it was a long old haul. I remember the first time we went up there, we got back. I think there was like me, Linsky, James Ty, someone else, because we all lived in Sussex, and we got back to Linsky's house at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's a long old schlep,
I wanted to ask Dean, kind of, you'd obviously managed Justin Richards, obviously, to begin with. Had you learned kind of a lot from there that you then brought into the Dean, into the Burchill stuff, or just kind of in general as your management kind of had developed to that point, or?
Really, it was just the reacting to things in the ring, because a lot of the stuff, or pretty much all the stuff that I had done in the old school, wouldn't fit with this, because you're not trying to wind the fans up. You can try and wind the opponent up, but generally speaking, the opponent was selling that they're terrified of Burchill so much anyway that you didn't need to do that. So it was really, it started with just watching the match and giving any kind of advice on the spot as it was going, or feedback at the end of the match. It ended up being just reacting to what was going on in front of me. And because obviously as a babyface manager, you're not gonna interfere or anything like that. So you're just sort of a bit of a cheerleader.
Yeah, but like Burchill's not really a traditional babyface, is he? Like he's still like. He doesn't break the rules, but it's still a smash mouth style. And it makes sense for him to have someone at ringside, to have a guide at ringside, I think, an experienced person in his corner. Yeah,
I mean, the story was always that, there's this rookie sensation who it needs some guidance, and the wise manager, Twisted Genius, is the one that's sending him out there. So that did make sense, but I did not like the 10 count thing that we did at each match. I would have much rather he pinned people.
Everybody's shaking their heads. I like it. It makes him different. Nobody else does it in the company.
But it didn't make sense because he should be counted out as well, because he's not.
No, it doesn't. Right. I'm gonna do this again. It does make sense because he doesn't start leaving until the referee is halfway through their down count. And the referee has got more important things to think about than the bloke walking off up the aisle.
No, hold on a second. We discussed this the episode before where I said if we involved VAR as a version of kind of wrestling, he does the count, but then he's out of the ring at that point, and you would have to, in essence, count him.
You only have one referee. If there's a second referee counting him out, if there's a linesman, then I'll go for it. but.
Listen, they were doing football rules at this point in
Yeah,
FWA.
the other,
so,
I guess they were. Yeah, the other thing is you have him stand around like a twat for like a count of 10, like, and then he leaves the ring, I suppose. Yeah, I understand why they did it. It was weird. I have seen like Burchill squashes where he does go for pinfalls, like particularly in up north, and there was a match that didn't make it on TV that he did win by pinfall, possibly because he won by pinfall.
Right.
Yeah. And it was weird to see him powerbomb someone, cover them, and then they kicked out. And that's not what Burchill opponents should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I just think if he had, a big move, like the C4 or whatever, where he would hit that and he would get the cover or he would get the pin every time, and the crowd would count along 1, 2, 3. You're then giving them something to sing along to at the beginning and something to sing along to at the end.
Yeah, maybe so. Maybe also the another thought I've just had is maybe they could have done like he gets instant knockouts, like he does a C4, the ref steps over and goes, "No, that guy's done. This is over," and stops it immediately without the count.
Yeah. Although that wasn't such a thing back then.
No, I guess not.
I guess
no.
These days, I have seen someone with that kind of gimmick, with a like a karate gimmick where he was doing a roundhouse kick and KOing people, and that it got over all right. Yeah.
Mr. Ogden.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, when we're talking about managerial styles, and I think what made the Burchill thing was refreshing was it weren't just like, here's another manager who's an East End gangster. Because that's like everything seemed to, like in the early days of like the FWA TV stuff, everything was from lock, stock and snap.
I think that might have been just the general influence of the people involved. I'm not going to go any deeper than that. Let's move on to, they're beyond the scope of this timeline, but after that, as you briefly mentioned, like you got Styx and Martin Stone as your next charges once Paul Burchill moved on.
Yeah.
Tell us about that a bit, because that's pivoting again. You've gone from a group of veterans to the solo rookie, and now to a tag team, one who's significantly more established than the other, I think.
Yeah, it was a strange one, because the FWA as it had been was no more. It was a very different company. It was a different feel.
We're into 2005 now. Aren't
we? It didn't have that buzz to it any longer. But I think everyone was kind of hoping that it would. It's gone down. It will come back up again. So we had. I remember we had a couple of matches with the New Breed. We had there was a match with Manchester Massive. Then we had a couple of matches up in Morecambe where we won the titles, I think, off of Duke of Danger and Simmons. It was. I was going through my divorce at that time, so I wasn't having a great time of things anyway. So I kind of my memories of that are very blurry, shall we say? I didn't feel it really clicked. I got on fine with Styx. I think Martin didn't really want to be in a tag team. He wanted to go out on his own.
No, I seem to recall, and I'm sure I will get a phone call from one or the other if I'm wrong, that they weren't particularly friendly with each other either.
No, they
sort of like professional. They go and do it, but like they probably wouldn't go and have a pint together afterwards.
No, I think that's fair to say. Yeah, it wasn't. It was a team that was put together, I think, mainly because of the pun on the name, Sticks and Stone. I think someone joked at one point, "Oh, let's put them together," and it went from there. But no, I think the best chemistry comes from people who are good friends. Like me and Justin still to this day are very good friends, and we're in touch with each other all the time. And I think that people can feel that and see that. And then really we stopped being used because of, I remember what Greg Lambert referred to as geographical reasons, which
Yes.
is perfectly understandable. No heat on Greg whatsoever there. It's just, the FWA was morphing into the XWA up in Morecambe.
Yeah, the base had kind of shifted up north, hadn't it, really? Like Morecambe was selling out and other stuff wasn't, so why not base yourselves there?
Yeah. I mean, I think it was it's one of those things with the FWA where, and you see this so often with other promotions, where it got to a point where it became too big to have the same feeling it had before. But when so I think with the FWA, when it hit British Uprising 3 in the Sky Dome, that feeling had gone. And I remember it not being a great atmosphere backstage that day. It was just people, it was where you should have been excited. A lot of people, it felt a bit of a chore, I think.
Yeah.
And like I remember before our match, like Greg Lambert came up to like me and Drew and Thunder and Terry Funk and people, and it was like, what do you want to do in this match? And Terry had been brought over by Drew, and they knew each other well from Germany, and they were these 30+ year veterans who just wanted to go out there and call it in the ring. And you've got this guy who, in their eyes, has been around for 5 minutes, asking them what they want to do. And I remember Drew saying, "Do you want to go and ask the internet what they want to happen?" And I'm like, "Oh shit, this isn't going to be a good day, is it?" And
thinking back, that match is so weird, I guess, from that point of view, because like you say, you've got Funk and Drew, who've been doing it for 30 years, who can call it all in the ring. Raj and Burchill are from a school where you go out and you basically practice the entire thing before you do it. Yeah, Christ knows what Thunder was. And then I think poor Paul Travell is caught somewhere in the middle of that, isn't it? Because he's from that school, but he proved himself to be very capable at calling it, I think.
No, Paul Travell was from Hammerlock.
Oh, yes, he was.
Paul Travell was from Hammerlock, and Thunder was Banger Walsh's son, so he trained up in like on the All-Star circuit. He'd done all of that. Yeah. So you had Drew and Darren, his name, isn't it? Thunder. Drew and Darren, who were from the All-Star kind of old school circuit. Terry Funk, who's just Terry Funk, and then as you say, these other sort of factions, and everyone kind of just stuck with their own people,
So I personally have never seen any FWA beyond 2005. Did you have any involvement after that, after the Sticks and Stone thing finishes?
No. The last thing I ever did, which had anything to do with FWA, was the FWA VIPW show, where I came out as I think I was like the FWA ring announcer, and John Atkins was the IPW ring announcer, and ended up like where I'd wind John Atkins up through the whole show, and we'd end up having a scrap. I don't think you can quite call it a cat fight when it's me and John Atkins, can you? But whatever, a twat fight, I don't know. But and then Greg Lambert comes out and gets in my face, because we always had this rivalry, and I ended up taking my shirt off, and I had an IPW t-shirt underneath, which was great because I got a free t-shirt. And then that sort of, then I went into IPW managing and doing whatever else I did in IPW for a bit.
I was going to ask about life after the FWA. So you've been involved in IPW, 1PW, Premier Promotions, a hint of Rev Pro. We did RQW together for our sins.
Yeah.
Manager, commentator, booker, even a couple of matches. Are you happy with everything you've achieved in wrestling, or is there anything you've not done that you'd still like to do?
The only regret, I've never ever regretted not trying to get to WWE or anything like that, because I have never had any desire to live in America. I can stomach being in that country for about 3 or 4 days, and after that I'm like, for fuck's sake, get me out of here. The only so I was happy with that, and I've done Talksport, as we've touched on, and I've worked with some I've worked. I mean, the highlight. I know it's something I often joke about, but the highlight of my career easily is working with Terry Funk. Someone I grew up watching, and I don't know if I'm the only person who can say they've done this, but Terry Funk was the NWA World Heavyweight Champion on the day that I was born, and then I worked with him. And I've emceed like Johnny Saint and people that I grew up watching on the TV. The only thing I would say that I regret, because after all you always regret the things you don't do, was I was contacted by ITV about when they were relaunching World of Sport, about being a commentator, and I got this phone call out of the blue from this fella, and I kind of thought it was, I didn't think it was a wind up, but I thought it was like one of these, kind of pie in the sky fantasists, because you'd get that often with people, like, especially in, like, I remember in 1PW, I'd have people coming up to me and say, oh, I'm going to be doing this promotion and we're going to get these people in and will you commentate? And they, you could tell they didn't have a clue and it never ever came about. So I was kind of thinking, I don't know if this guy is legit or not. And obviously, it turned out that he was. But I sent them.
But what did you call him?
No, I mean, I just, I kind of was metaphorically holding the phone at arm's length, kind of thinking, I don't know what this is about, but, sent him a few tapes of me commentating on like Dragon Gate with Stu and people like that. And in the end, they didn't get me, and they got some new fella called Jim Ross. I don't know if he did much after that. So I couldn't exactly blame them for doing that, but at the same time, going back to what we said right at the beginning of this, World of Sport and ITV was what I started with and what I grew up with. So to have been able to say I have commentated on ITV World of Sport Wrestling would have been incredible. I mean, obviously the show itself was awful, unfortunately. They didn't.
You're not going to find much argument here.
Well, they didn't establish any characters, and
they did. Two of them, Grado and was it Shah? No, it was
Dave Mastiff.
Dave Mastiff, yeah, and then everybody else was just a wrestler.
Yeah,
and then they had the commissioner guy, whatever his name was, or whatever. They had that. Or was that in the second time they rebooted it or something? But they didn't really do. That was World of Sport just seemed like a bit of a mess at certain times from that one that you watched, really. And it was just like, we're quickly getting this underway and selling it, and then that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I remember like the first episode, Will Ospreay is on, and you've got to remember that you're catering mainly to a non-wrestling audience because of the time that it was on and the channel it was on, and it was just basically, oh yeah, here's Will Ospreay, he's a really good wrestler, or he's a really good high flyer. So we'll put, rather than having a VT where you're showing some clips of him doing these daredevil moves to establish him, you think about something like X Factor and those kind of reality shows where they've clearly got the people that they want to succeed, who they've done a package on. It's usually my parents were killed in a fire and I was raised by wolves, or whatever the fuck it is they want to talk about, and it's there's always the sob story, and but it makes you connect emotionally with those people, and there's nothing there to do that, along with things like let's have a shot of someone in a headlock with a fucking rope across their face, but
I mean, Dean, I could absolutely see you rocking a cowboy hat and beside your and to be fair, it would have probably been a dream team up, because obviously the other commentator was some guy by the name of, was it Shane Alex or
something like Shane Alexson,
like
I'd trade in I'd have to trade in the Arabic headdress for a cowboy hat.
Do you have much remembrance of the match you had in FWA, the 2002 mixed tag?
Yeah, it was a fucking mess. I remember that. It was. I'd gone down. I remember I'd gone down to the Portsmouth school that Mark Sloan ran, because Nikita was there, and we just kind of practiced me doing, taking the Nikita cutter, the Stone Cold Stunner. And I did a
When the fuck did she ever use that? I've only ever seen her win with roll-ups and that tornado pedigree thing at British Uprising 2.
She did it. She did it with that. Definitely, she did it with that.
I think that was just a rib on you, mate. I want to see Dean take a stunner from a girl. That was how they did this.
Yeah, I just remember like doing a couple of them and then saying that'll do, won't it? And Dino was there, and he's like, no, that will not fucking do. And we had to do a few more until we got it absolutely spot on. And, if Dino wanted that, Dino got that. Then on the night, and I think you've mentioned this before, that they forgot to book Justin Richards because it was meant to be Justin Richards and me against Scott Parker and Nikita. And when they kind of realised Justin wasn't there, they rang him up and it's like, where are you? And he was, wherever he was, he's like, well, you didn't book me. I'm somewhere else. And they realised he couldn't get there in time. So Mark Sloan was drafted in. That's how Mark Sloan joined the old school, basically, because he was a sub for Justin Richards. And I think all I remember really was, I didn't do an awful lot until right at the end, to take the finish. But my main memory of it was that I was then booked in the very next match to manage Christopher Daniels. So I had to have my manager's clothes literally right behind the curtain, so I could then just take my wrestling gear off, leave it for someone to put away for me, put my manager's gear back on, covered in sweat, and go out there again for the Christopher Daniels match.
Was this the one where you had the neck brace, or when was the neck, or am I completely missing something?
I never had a neck brace as far as I remember.
No, did someone else have a neck
No,
brace?
you did. And I remember you telling me it was from a car accident and you hung onto it in case it could be used in wrestling.
Sorry, I thought you meant I had it in the show. Yes, I did. No, I did. I had a car accident. That was in like the early 90s or mid 90s. Me and Doug driving back from a Hammerlock show, and we had a head-on car crash with a drunk driver, which was fun. And I had a neck brace on. And exactly that. I kept it. And I know Justin used it in Hammerlock. I don't know if maybe he used it in the FWA as well. But actually, you've made me think of another regret, which is that the Vendetta 2002 show that we did in Telford never ever got released. Only one match has ever been released. I think partly because it was like very orangey tinted, but also partly because Jake the Snake Roberts was being a dick and refused to sign the release form to let his likeness of that be used, even though he'd agreed to it previously. So it was Justin against Scott with me in Justin's corner and Jake as the guest referee, and that never saw the light of day because of that. And there's also
a clip of it has made it somewhere. I've seen a clip of it somewhere. Yes.
Okay.
I think it's on one of the 2002 VHS releases where they got that terrible Geordie on commentary.
Oh right. Okay.
Yeah, and it's used as part of a build-up package for something.
Right, and there's also because I remember talking to Flash recently about this. What Flash thinks is his best match he ever had with Doug on that show, and that never saw the light of day.
The only full match that's ever come out of that was the quote-unquote dream tag team match of Johnny and Jody versus the New Breed, which is 4 skinny lads missing everything they try for 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's on a compilation thing, isn't it? Yeah. That's a real shame. That I remember trying to find that tape. I think someone said Mark Sloan might have it, but never.
I think a lot of stuff has just been lost to time, like thrown out of sheds and burned down in fires and all kinds of stuff like that. Yeah, it's a shame.
I wanted to ask because I would be doing a disservice to my former podcast host Armchair Race, who wrote the book on 1PW. What was your experiences on 1PW, Dean? How crazy was it, or was it not as crazy? I need to know.
No, it was crazy. Yeah. I remember things that I remember were like because obviously I'd come up from the south coast, so I would always the first thing I'd always do before I even got to the venue was I'd check into the hotel to make sure I'd got a room, because there were several occasions where like they hadn't booked enough hotel rooms and people would finish the show and then wouldn't have anywhere to stay. So I always made sure I did that. We always stayed at a different hotel every time, apparently because they'd had wild parties and that, but I'm presuming it was because they hadn't paid the bill. So yeah, every time. I remember, in fact, one time I remember leaving one of the hotels and the girl at the reception desk said, like, do you have a number for Stephen Gaultney were trying to get a hold of him, and I was like, "Oh no, I don't, sorry," and just quickly ran off into the sunset.
We do everything by carrier pigeon.
Yeah. I mean, I never had any problem as far as being paid or anything like that. I mean, I think a lot of people inflated their pay packet to him, and I just gave him my regular rate, so I got paid every time. Same with the FWA. I always got paid with the FWA. There'd be a few times where we'd get paid by check. So I remember I'd go to work on the Monday morning, and at lunchtime I had a bank that was like a branch of my bank that about 10 minutes up the road. So I'd like just run up the road at my lunchtime to cash the check in while there was still money in the FWA.
Before everybody
account.
else did.
Yeah. And again, I never ever had a check bounce. But yeah, it was. I mean, I remember like having good long conversations with Steve Carino, and I think that's why he sort of recommended me to take over the book. Obviously, we had like 2 shows, and then the whole thing folded, and so all my ideas went up in smoke. But whether I'd have been able to kind of handle that, I don't know. I doubt it. I think it was just loads of imports when you had like 6 or 8 imports when you only needed 2. You needed your indie guy and your ex-WWF guy. It was just a strangely run place, with all of these people just turning, like various hangers on or people just turning up out of nowhere, and you're not sure who's who. But from my personal perspective, I didn't have too many problems really, but it was like organized chaos. I think
I think organised is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
Yeah, I mean, the imports would get treated well, and the British guys would have would be a bit of an afterthought. Like the British guys had one dressing room, and the tourists had another dressing room, so you never mixed, which is not like in the FWA where everyone was just all in together. It was one of those things where you knew it wasn't going to last, and one of the things that I was given the job of doing was allying British people with the tourists to kind of get the British guys over, so you could rely less on the imports. So I mean, I remember like having Jack Storm and Dave Morales aligned with Sterling James Keenan, and in the feud with Spud and things like that, just to try and reduce the reliance on the British guys, and and putting an emphasis on Pac and things like that.
That Spud, the Sterling James Keenan stuff, that's one of the things that kind of I immediately saw on the wrestling channel and got me kind of hooked into that kind of stuff. So
Spud is so, James Spud, Drake, whatever you want to call him, he is so good. He is so good. There's a handful of people where you watch them doing their thing, and you just think you get it. You understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, how to get it, make it memorable to people, and he absolutely got it.
If he had been 10 to 12 inches taller, he would have been a megastar.
Yeah.
I have never known anybody in wrestling willing to do whatever it takes to get his angle over. I have seen him do the most ridiculous stuff and make it work, both as a babyface and as a heel. I've got tons of respect for James. He's brilliant. And
he is one of the few people I always remember, like, if he did a show where, I remember it was in Broxbourne, and in the match he'd injured his knee in the storyline, and then when he came out to the auditorium afterwards, and you never know how many fans are going to be hanging around, he was still limping and was still selling the knee.
Yep.
To the point
the show doesn't end until you're in the car on the way home.
Yeah. To the point that I actually, the first time it happened, I actually said to him, "Oh, you okay? I thought you were just selling," and he's like, "No, I am." I was like, "Oh, right, I get it." Yeah, because I thought he'd legit hurt himself. Yeah.
So, with all the ups and downs of the company, what would you say 20 years on are your overall final feelings on the FWA?
Oh, what a run! It was just the proverbial roller coaster. It was, like I said earlier, you didn't realize quite what you were doing at the time, and it's only when we look back on things now we realize, my God, just the amount of fun we had, the amount of the amount of friends I made. As I said, I was at Rishi's wedding last night, and there was a group of people, all ex FWA. That we were all just having a good catch up and a chinwag. There's me, there's Doug, Max Voltage, RJ Ross, Raj and Rishi, obviously. It's a bond that that stays with you forever, because you were a part of British wrestling history, and Hammerlock opened the door for a new generation of wrestlers who could literally walk in off the street and start up, and we've listed a lot of those people. And then FWA just changed the way that British promotions ran shows and promoted, and the impact and the effects of that is still seen to this day, where you get big promotions who are expected to have an import, and often it's just someone who's brought in as an exhibition rather than anything in the storyline, and that is all of the FWA influence.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
It's been great fun.
Please let everybody know where you can be found on the internet if you want to be found, all that kind of stuff.
I've recently left Twitter, X, whatever, and have gone to the great migration of Blue Sky, where I'm with a name like mine. I'm fortunate I can just have the handle of Dean Ayass wherever I go, really.
You and me both, mate.
As far as I'm aware, I'm the only Dean Ayass in the world, but there could very well be someone walking around Iraq with a copy of my birth certificate.
So, quick aside, until about 15 years ago, I was the only Kieran Lefort on the internet.
Right.
And then my name started appearing in skiing results, and I've never been skiing in my life. And it turns out there is a French-Canadian ski instructor with my name. He's about 20 years younger than I am, but yeah, there are now 2 Kieran Leforts in the world. My favourite name thing like that is John Atkins, the wonderful hardcore John Atkins of FWA fame, who made it his mission to befriend as many John Atkins as possible on Facebook, and ended up with something like 19 people.
He's gone full Dave Gorman.
Yes.
Brilliant.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say that because my dad was born in Iraq, and then the family moved from Iraq to Lebanon, and seemingly wherever they went, wars would happen. But basically, the family were trying to sell some property that had belonged to them in Iraq for donkey's years, that they'd never been able to sell because of Saddam Hussein and then wars and upheaval and stuff. And things had got calm enough that you could have your Iraqi version of Homes Under the Hammer, Homes Under the Hamas, I don't know. But one thing we needed to do was, there was a form that needed to be completed that was basically, if my dad passed away before the sale had been completed, these forms would then allow the proceeds to be passed to my brother and I. And they needed original documentation. And so, without telling me until it had gone off, my dad sent my original birth certificate to the British Embassy in Iraq, I think it was, or the Iraqi Embassy in Britain. They sent off something, and we're like, "Will we get this back?" And they're like, "Oh yes, absolutely." Never got it back. So the only conclusion I can think of is that someone in Baghdad is committing identity fraud. So, if you see a story one day of Dean Ayass arrested in Baghdad, it's not me.
Okay.
Honest God.
That seems like the perfect place to leave it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Keep up the excellent work with the podcast. It's a really good listen.
Oh,
Thank you. So, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we are going to talk about the final 3 profile episodes. And Eddie, you remember how last month you were given it the look at these losers, Xavier and Ty, having to share an episode? Every episode this month is a two-hander.
Hey, and included in them supposed losers this time is the one and only Joe.
I know.
Why does he not? Like, he's in charge of this. He should get his own episode. But no, this
You'd
is
have
where
thought that, right?
Yeah, this is where the budget has basically ran out, where it's just like just clip. It's like just clip 2 episodes of you being framed together and hope for the best.
So our first 2 losers on episode 4 are Burchill and Nikita. We get another lovely big lip smack from John to open the show, and he tells us we'll be taking a look at the man monster of the FWA and a gorgeous former model who has made a name for herself by jumping off balconies and beating men twice her size, the beauty and the beast of the FWA, Nikita and Burchill. Rookie monster, aggression, path of rage, enter the ring at your own risk, Burchill. Another wonderfully amateurish music video, this time obviously for Burchill and set to his theme, with various words, not even animating or smashing into the screen, they just appear. My favourite part...
Oh, sorry. I think you may be saying the same thing as me. We'll see how it
goes. Go.
The moonsault where he misses and doesn't hit a single person?
Yes. I understand that it's the corner to corner one, so he clears a big distance. But there's no water in the pool at the end. It's like showing Tom Daly doing this incredible dive and then smacking his head on the side of the pool and putting that in a highlights package.
And then there's that, and he does the kip up where he like cranks his neck. Yeah. That's the only 2 things I'm like, why are these in a video package to promote this?
My favourite part is at the end where it suddenly cuts to the FWA logo, then to John in some alternate timeline, and then onto his next link. There's this really weird, like, brief flash of the wrong take of John Atkins. Great work, Summoners. Glad you went out of business.
Kieran,
yes.
with John Atkins opening the show, like into the first match, he spoils the finish and result before showing the match. Like...
He does that. He has done that at least once on every episode, and spoiler, will continue to do that throughout the rest of these episodes. Again, I am not blaming John. He did not write these links, I assume.
Cheers, Southerners.
Yes. So, he tees up the first match, which is in fact the New Breed versus the Pitbulls from British Uprising 1. He tells us that Burchill beat up both breeders, injuring Curve's neck and taking him out of wrestling for a year. Not quite true. In the FWA, at least, he was part of a match in a family formation angle about 5 months later. And in fact, he was on a TWA show 2 weeks after Uprising. So this is New Breed versus Pitbulls, British Uprising, October 13th, 2002. It's the whole thing, from the entrances through to the final pinfall, via a botched high five and a beatdown. Yes?
I will say here that, unlike some of this stuff on these profile episodes, I didn't fast forward through this bit. Because it's my favourite 10 minutes of the New Breed just getting smashed.
It just feels real. I get it, because I'm assuming this is his, or they're trying to build this as his first appearance within the entire thing. I take it with Burchill, from what I can remember.
It's not his first appearance, but they're putting over that he would do the run in and beat down stuff before he had a match.
Yeah, I kind of get that. He does come across as obviously quite terrifying. I'll be honest, I skipped through a bits of this because I was like, I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Went back to notes.
Yep. We obviously reviewed this on our Uprising episode, Norfolk Waterfall. So Burchill murders the New Breed, and the Pitbulls take advantage. Ash tries to put up a fight, but he gets overwhelmed and pinned. My Apple Notes refuses to take the word Pitbulls, so the Pitfalls retain, according to the Apple Notes app. Brilliant. Back to John, who says Burchill displays a devastating arsenal of high-flying power moves that many men half his size would be unable to execute. He then throws to Burchill versus Double Dragon from Frontiers of Honor, saying this is a handicap match, but it isn't always clear who has the handicap. Again, we've covered this when we did the 2003 rundown episode with Ben, Shiny Pants. Frontiers of Honor, May 17th, 2003. It's almost a whole segment from start to finish, just with an ad break clumsily inserted in the middle of Duke's mic work. I think, as with all of the Burchill versus Hampton Court feud stuff, though, this got our recommendation as something to watch.
Yeah, I think I messaged you, Kieran, saying I had a bit more appreciation for Raj Ghosh's bump in here. Where he just every move just looked devastating. In that bit where Dean grabs you down. Are you all right? Are you all right?
Yes.
Fucking brilliant.
This is Burchill's official FWA debut, so of course he wins in an entertaining power squash. Quick trivia question. How many matches did Burchill have in the FWA? You're not allowed on Cage Match, so stop typing.
No,
Yeah,
you're
hands in
typing,
the
I
air.
promise.
Yeah.
So are we? Do you want? I take it we're doing the same thing as the age game, where the closest number
Yeah,
wins.
closest wins. We don't count the run-ins. We don't count FWA Academy. Main show FWA.
Less than 40.
That's very vague.
I'll say.
I go for 37.
37, okay.
I'll say 25.
14.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. Yep.
Was he snapped up that quick? Jesus.
Burteen, Jesus. Burchill has 14 official matches in the FWA from May 2003 to November 2004. We have or will cover 9 of them. 9.5, because one of them it only appears in a highlights package. 2 of them only appear in a highlights package. Yeah.
Jesus.
14 matches.
And then he obviously goes off and becomes a pirate and then a sister Shagger. Okay.
Yes.
But
Yes.
if you think like he one of the hottest stars, you'd think if you were FWA, you'd push it so far. Like,
Yeah, there's a ceiling though. Like, it's the Goldberg effect.
yeah,
You know, eventually you've got to beat the unbeatable monster, and they do. But
Not with a taser to the chest. Then.
there were no tasers involved. I'll tell you that. Yes. So we go back to John for more of his obsession with relative sizes of people on this episode.
I don't know, and you guys maybe didn't feel this, but I did. He feels like he's presenting this like Vincent Price or something like that at point during this. Like, look at this match. Wheels. And I'm just like, whoa, this is just too much.
So his relative size fetish comes as he talks about Nikita having to wrestle men twice her size due to the lack of female competition in British wrestling. He then throws to Nikita versus Raj Ghosh from Vendetta 2003 and gives away the ending by saying Raj rethought his entire career after this, joining the family. So this is June 22nd, 2003. We covered the finish on the 2003 episode as it all led into the family show swearer stuff, but here is almost the whole match. I would say this is pretty typical of the FWA undercard style of the day. So it's pretty heavily practiced, fast-paced, back-and-forth stuff. It's usually well executed. No one party is in control for an extended period. And there's a couple of inventive moves you've probably not seen elsewhere at the time. And here, that's Ghosh doing like an abdominal stretch driver.
yeah.
Nick London invents the word overneath on commentary. Which I think is somewhere just outside Edinburgh. Your finishing stretch is Nikita escaping the Ghosh Buster, yes, brilliant name, leg sweep DDT, into a complex series of rope running reversals. Raj slides between her legs, grabbing a wrist on the way through to set up a pump handle. But Nikita slides down his back, gets her feet under his armpits and pulls him backwards into a reverse victory roll for the pin. I think this is all right, perfectly fine.
I think as a 1-2 combo with the way you see Raj Ghosh get twatted off Burchill and then going into this where it's a relatively competitive match. It's very, very good to watch. Just appreciation again for Raj Ghosh.
Is this your new monthly segment, Gush over Ghosh, where he's become your new favourite?
I think he might be, and Nikita as well. A lot of the matches we've seen her in have been very good. I don't think there's been much like fluff.
No, she's a perfectly capable wrestler. We get a clumsy edit back to John as he talks about the £10,000 bounty placed on Nikita's head and then throws to Nikita versus the foot fetishist Mark Sloan from British Uprising 2. My first note is, I'm not watching this again.
Hey, I put it over as 4.5 stars, didn't I?
Oh, yeah, you loved it, don't you?
Yeah, no, I think I did watch this again just because I enjoyed it the first time.
Skipped it right away. It was like, nope, no more Mark Sloan for me for the moment. Thank you.
It starts with 15 minutes of TV time left and includes all the pre-match Stevie Knight stuff. Nikita wins with a tornado pedigree out of the corner. The match before CM Punk beats Colt Cabana with the very similar Pepsi plunge. And then John's final lifeless link tells us we've now seen the diversity of the FWA roster and proven there really is something for everyone on an FWA show. And commentary is still spelt wrong in the closing credits. I called this episode rubbish. I guess if you've never seen Burchill before, it's cool, but otherwise it's like, I think our reviewing of this is hurt by the fact that we've seen most of this stuff before.
Kieran,
Yes.
just one thing, I don't think you mentioned the very much 1900s overlay, what was on like some of the mid-ad breaks.
There's a 1900s overlay on some of the ad. Bear in mind, I skipped through a lot of this. I only watched the stuff I hadn't already seen.
Yeah, so the ad breaks had like a grey overlay to them. Like,
Weird.
Yeah.
I did
Very
notice
bizarre.
that on some of them, because it was the FWA logo, and then it was in grey, wasn't it, or something like that? I
that
think,
was
from
it,
what I
yeah.
can remember. Yeah.
Weird.
Thank you, Sumners.
I think the problem with this as well is, we've mentioned it, they're doing two peoples together. They're not doing ones on one person. And I think, as we mentioned in the other ones before, it's just matches, and it's just kind of, oh, look at this happening. It's not like talking segments to get to know who these people are, kind of, Ayass kind of promo or something like that,
Yeah. Episode 5, Zebra Kid and Flash Barker. You can hardly hear Atkins over his backing music as he tells us we're going to be looking at a couple of hard bastards this week, and throws to Zebra Kid versus Samoa Joe from Frontiers of Honor. Pre-match, Joe puts the belt on the line. He's the Ring of Honor World Champion. This is shortly after he's just begun his record-breaking, legendary Ring of Honor World title reign. So he puts the belt on the line, which automatically tells us who's going to win. The match is clipped and joined in progress, but we still get these two stubborn fucks battering each other. And most importantly, you can hear how hot the crowd is for this.
Yeah.
He wasn't, but they saw Zebra Kid on Joe's level.
And he did the that Ole kick, didn't he, into the barricade, where basically the barricade just crumbled.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. We get Zeb does this great elbow off the apron onto Joe, who's laid across a bucket chair. We get the ST Joe, which neither the commentators or Zebra seem to know was coming, and yes, the Ole kick. The thing I'd never noticed before was that Joe goes and gets a chair from a fan, and when he goes to place it, he shoos two security guys out of the way who are sitting in exactly the same type of seat, exactly where he wants to put the one he's just picked up. Anyway, yes, Roy gets kicked through the guardrail, and Joe celebrates with a lap of the ring and the knee slide. This was the first time he did the Ole kick. Cut to later, both men are covered in shiny confetti for some reason. As Zebra hits a middle rope DDT, a top rope drop kick, and does some hip thrusting, but leaps off the top into an arm bar, some knees, and what I called a miscommunication clothesline, which he basically takes the inside of Joe's forearm to his temple. Zeb tries to fire back with punches and a kick to the balls, but Joe no-sells two clotheslines and folds him like laundry with a locomotion German suplex, dragon suplex, and a straightjacket German for the pin. I don't think there's enough of this shown to rate it, but there's enough to make you want to go and buy the tape and watch the whole thing.
Yeah, I think what ruins it is the obvious when he says, "Oh, this is now a Ring of Honor title match." It's like, well, why bother with the next 15 minutes, is it?
Yeah, it was like that on the night, and you'll notice Zebra was actually the All England champion and didn't come out with the belt, although he's announced as being the All England champion. So, like, they don't want the visual of their guy with the belt losing. But yeah, I've never been a fan of like that impromptu title shot for somebody who is obviously going to lose.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't know if it was just because of the highlights they picked, but like I enjoyed this way more than I remember enjoying this match. I haven't watched this match in full for a very long time, so I don't know like how it stacks up. But like I think they picked good clips and made it look cool.
I think they try and made it not look like a Roy Knight match, which sometimes...
Joe's just not going to stand there and take it, is he?
No, is he, Al? But you know what I mean? Like a standard night match is like, we're controlling it, mate. But...
yeah.
But I will say Zebra Kid's fucking elbow drop, he gets some height and distance.
Oh, yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, he's real good at it. Our next match is Zebra Kid versus Mark 5-Star Belton for the All England title from Vendetta, June 22nd, 2003. It sounds like Jane Child says this is Belton's debut, but we've seen him twice as 5-Star Flash on the old Portsmouth TV show, including in the match where Jody broke his arm. And he was on 3 nights of the British Breakout Tour just before this. Incidentally, I went on Cage Match and looked him up to see what he's doing now, and I saw that 5 Star Flash had matches in Australia this year, and one of them had a link to a video, so I clicked through. It's not the same guy. There's an Australian guy going by 5 Star Flash. That's not the weird thing. The weird thing is he was wearing a t-shirt that said FWA on it. Future Wrestling of Australia. How weird is that? 2 different FWAs, each with their own 5 Star Flash.
One of the things that's wild. That's just bafflingly wild. I liked. It's going to sound completely. The match was the match, but I did enjoy the revolving FWA logo that was spotlighted on a wall. For that,
like the Batman signal.
Yeah. It just kept revolving, and then there was the color kept changing on the other thing, and I was like, "Ooh, I like that."
Yeah, the trouble is, if you put that up like the bat signal, Mark Sloan appears.
He comes up with the barbecue. The barbecue like stage.
So this match is clipped, it's joined in progress, and this is 2 dickheads who don't particularly like each other working snug, but just about staying professional. Belton keeps getting crotched on the same corner. Do you remember that run of Portsmouth TV shows where people were continually getting crotched on that one turnbuckle?
Yeah. I
got flashbacks to that. First time he gets hurled across the ring with a superplex. Second time it's this ridiculous top rope DDT. We then have what I called a hilarious ad break. We get the very start of an ad, and it's an Ocean Finance ad, and her line is, "Are you a homeowner who could benefit from an Ocean Finance loan?" On this version that is on YouTube, she gets cut off in the middle of homeowner, so this woman just yelled at me, "Are you a homo?" None of your business, love.
The good thing is we do get the advert at the end of the overall thing. Where it's like, "Are you a homeowner?" And it's like, you could do with some Ocean Finance loan.
Yeah.
Does Belton get seen a lot more? Are we going to see a lot more of Belton?
Prepare yourself, my friend. We have a year of 5 Star Mark Belton coming.
Oh, fuck me. He's going to be like the new breed, isn't he, for me?
He may well be. Hey, you may turn out to like him. Who knows? After the break, and this is a direct continuation of the action, we cut back just for the zebra crossing top rope elbow and the pin. They couldn't wait less than 30 seconds for the match to finish and then put the ad break in.
But Tony, and then cuts on to the next thing. I don't know what Nick Giles, what Nick London's going to say.
Yeah. This is ruined by some appalling editing. This was dreadful. Atkinson throws to the Flash and Jody ladder match from Uprising 1. He looks far too pleased with himself for the line, "This match shows why FWA action takes a backseat to no one." I didn't watch this again. We've seen this. I skimmed through it. It looked like it was a bit of clipping, but including the entrance and the celebration, they put 23 minutes of this on TV. And I was like, this episode must have been thrown together in an hour. The editor had nothing to do.
So just thinking, because the episode would have been about 50 minutes. So if this is taking up 23, 24 minutes, not
that's half your episode
time
done.
Left, is it?
Yeah. That's why I like the RQW episodes where we would just do a roundup of stuff happening in other promotions. And like, if they sent us like 3 15-minute matches, brilliant. All I've got to do is film the links with Len, and I've got an episode done in less than a day.
Yeah.
I feel like and we'll talk about it at the end, but there's something that feels off about the Flash Barker part of this.
I think I nailed it, and we will indeed talk about it at the end. So yeah, obviously this is where Jody wins the title, and then John, of course, ruins the finish of our final match of the night as he throws to Flash Barker versus Low-Key from Frontiers of Honor. We get about 7 minutes of their hard-hitting but meandering 20-minute draw in which Key separated his shoulder. I couldn't be bothered watching this again. It's not a good match in its entirety. Flash, however, is fucking yoked. Did you see the size of him?
Yeah.
This is the best shape I've ever seen Flash Barker in. Loki is over and has his bitchin' theme, Fighter's Passion by the Immortals, which was his Ring of Honor theme tune. And then at the end, Linsky makes a mess of announcing why they're not getting 5 more minutes. And then, of course, we go back to John Atkins for another terrible link, and that's the end of this awful episode.
I think you know straight away. Obviously, with Loki, he's very protective of his record, isn't he?
Yes. Yes.
So he's not putting over the local.
No, like he wasn't going to come and put over somebody he'd never heard of. They had obviously decided they were going to do the draw, but they hadn't. I don't think they planned it out, really.
Yeah.
And it's just, but both of them have a reputation of being hard bastards. So, like, they just have to beat the shit out of each other for 20 minutes. Flash is fucked at the end of this.
I'm food, Mr. Hart. Or Mr. Brandon. But, Gus, you think a better finish of this match would have been if, you know, Linsky obviously got onto the mic and said, you're not having 5 more minutes, would have been for Loki and Flash to kick the shit out of Linsky.
Yeah, but I can't remember where this comes on the card. That Linsky probably had to ref 3 more matches after this.
But then again, it's that thing where we talked about it as well. Linsky being the character, or being used as the kind of character to people to hate. And I mean, the fact they give him a mic and he goes on and cuts a promo and goes like, "You had this time and you had this time," and I'm like, just fuck off, mate. He
couldn't get the words out. Eddie, what do you think your issue is with the Flash Barker portion of this show?
Well, I guess a loss and a draw. I don't really feel like any...
Bingo. Bingo. I did notice that we got 2 Nikita victories and Burchill looking dominant on their episode, but here, Zebra beats Belton but loses to Joe, and Flash loses to Jody and only gets a draw with Low-Key.
Like, I get it. You want to kind of show off that Flash Barker match because it was a good match and stuff like that. Having him in a promo package to or character video, losing the belt, like you could easily put him winning the belt in that instead.
Yes, no, you can't. That match is fucking dreadful. I've watched that match. I've seen it more than once. In fact, I was there live for it. It's appalling. But even if not winning the belt, like, he's lost to a guy who is not only not the FWA champion anymore, he's not even in the fucking company anymore. And then he lost to an import as well. So he's lost to 2 people, only one of which we get to see again.
And the thing is with the Loki match is you're watching him getting fucked up by a small midget who's basically doing kung fu and kicks.
These are his words, not mine. A friend of mine years ago referred to Loki on a forum, and this has stuck with me ever since as the spastic ninja chimp. And I can't think of a better description of Loki.
It just reminds me of when he dressed up as Agent 47 for Wrestle Kingdom. It just looked like you'd put him in the wash and shrink to Agent 47. Yeah,
and got fired for it because they told him outright no, and he did it anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's just... And the thing is, with this, it's like... Obviously, you're advertising the character Flash, but you're showing him losing to Jody. He does obviously put quite a bit into that. But then in this one, he's just getting absolutely walloped about. And then it's only for, 10 minutes? And then it shows as a 20-minute time limit thing and stuff like that.
Match good, story doesn't matter. Like, that's what you're being told here. Like, the important thing is that they are quote-unquote good matches. So, finally, the last one of these, episode 6, which is Hayde Vanson and Alex Shane. Did either of you notice anything different about this episode?
Yes. And it was at the end where Alex Shane does a promo. Like he's a cutout from a Photoshop.
That is different, yes. Anything else at all?
There's a moment where Hayde Vanson's cutting his promo and you can hear I think you can hear John Atkins talking over the promo, or you can hear somebody talking, maybe Tony Giles, talking over the promo.
No, that's part of the work. It had a
story on it. It had a story.
The thing that is different about this episode is it's in 16:9.
Yeah.
All of John Atkins' links are a different aspect ratio to the rest of the show.
And as well, there was a better colour balance, I did feel, on
on John.
on John. Yeah, he didn't look like Casper the Friendly Ghost.
No, he didn't. I think the whole lot have been shot what's called anamorphic, which for people who aren't me is a way of squeezing a non-square image into a square frame when filming. So, and then when you go into post, you apply what's called a D-squeeze to get your widescreen image back. You know, films that are really wide, right? And when you watch them on your TV, you might have massive black bars on the top and bottom. They have been shot using this process, and for film, it's a lens that's a particular shape, and so it's to capture this wide angle and get it onto a smaller film frame.
So it's like something from maybe the late 60s, 70s. I'm thinking more, like something similar to Zulu.
That's where it's still done today. Now, I mean, for films, it will still be a lens, but for TV, this has been part of TV for a long time as well. And it's an electronic process. It was reasonably normal practice in this era of TV we're watching now, as we were kind of transitioning from, like, back in 2004, I bet you had a square TV, right? An old 4x3 CRT TV, yeah. And now our TVs are a different shape. And this is like in that crossover period, as like the widescreen TVs are starting to come in. Whoever edited the first 5 either didn't know or didn't care that this stuff had been shot like that and just left it squeezed, especially as all the FWA's wrestling footage is 4x3 and TWC was only ever broadcast in 4x3, which was a minor technical pain in the arse when I got around to doing RQW a few years later. Maybe they just thought John had a tall head. I don't know. But like, he's very definitely the right shape in this stuff. Yeah, very, very weird. So all of John's stuff is like this, with black bars on the top and the bottom, and then the FWA footage is 4x3, and it means about 20% of this episode just runs in a box in the middle of the screen. It's weird. Good job, Sumners, etc., etc. You know the rest of the gag. We get something of a cold open this time around. Like John tells us what we're in for before we get the opening titles. And then he comes back and introduces the angle from Vendetta where Security Vanson jumps the ring with a mic after Zebra Kid has beaten Mark Belton. So this follows on directly from that Zebra Belton match we saw on the previous episode. He says disparaging things about the FWA, and during the commentary recording, and this is what Eddie was talking about, they pretend that Alex, who was the managing director, is in the commentary booth and can be heard given mumbled instructions to kill Hade's microphone. Like he's put a commentary headset on and he's talking to tech guys to kill the house mic.
Kill the comm mic, something like that. And he was talking about it.
Yeah. So the gist of this is Hade is pissed that he's doing a security gig rather than wrestling. And there had been some other work shoot stuff with Alex's Shane's Shooting Gallery column online. I did get a giggle out something I'd never noticed before. He calls James Ty Young Frankenstein.
He calls he does the usual calling Jack Xavier fat or something like that at some point during this as well. Eventually,
some FWA officials in the form of Elizar Cabrera, Kenny McBride, Justin Richards, and there's still also a ref, Andy Coyne, come out and try and...
Elizar and the Stooges came across like it was Vince and Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe at a certain
point. Yeah, they're trying to get him to shut up so the show can go on. He rambles a bit more and then aggressively shoves the mic at Elizar and pulls off his FWA branded shirt. And it's at this point where Alex has gone, yes, kill the house mic, blah, blah, blah. He also shoves Kenny as he gets escorted out, who takes a bump and clips his head off the corner of the brick wall at Broxbourne Civic Hall. This was lame as fuck at the time. Nobody bought it. And I don't think it has any power now. It's just a heel promo. He's not saying anything inflammatory. And we weren't told to shoot it any differently or anything like that. There's no big scramble to get the mic off it or anybody, or to turn it off remotely. There's nobody like getting in front of the cameras going like, you shouldn't be filming this, like this isn't part of the show, that kind of thing. It's just crap.
I actually put on my notes though, pretty good angle that. So I've got a different opinion. Yeah,
you love a good work shoot, eh?
I do. Yeah. I thought it was nice when they followed Hade Vanson through like the fire exit. I thought, bit of a meat to the bone of the angle. I thought it was
interesting.
All right, but Justin Richards in his office attire, I was like, looked like he'd just come from work, weren't it? And like, right, Justin, we want you to do a run-in tonight.
You just missed him. I missed Justin Richard so much. It was nice to see him. Like, I think the word shoot thing, because I get it, because obviously we've talked about, I think there was stuff where Shane and Handsome were shouting stuff at each other or something like that, or swearing each other at certain points to kind of try and get the angle going.
Yeah.
I get them doing the whole commentary thing. I thought that was quite interesting, although it kind of just seems like a bit muffled, kind of really, because obviously...
I think it would have come across better on the VHS rather than the VHS rip you're trying to watch on YouTube 20 years later.
Yeah.
To be honest, whenever I rewatch this VHS back, I would skip over this because I didn't like it. So John tells us that Hayden's FWA contract was terminated for this. Spoiler, not one person ever had an FWA contract. But at Hotwired, he made a shocking unscheduled return. And so we go to Hotwired, September 21st, 2003. Flash Barker versus the Zebra Kid. The sound on this is fucking atrocious because it's taken from Sumner's VHS and they didn't use a compressor on the audio channel. So, like, under the entrance music, Tony Giles just disappears. You can just hear, Zebra Kid, Flash Barker. Rubbish. This is the only match these two ever had in the FWA. It was supposed to take place on the British Breakout Tour, but Flash got sick. Then they did this, and it goes for all of about 90 seconds before Hayde jumps the rail and gets in the ring. They still, maybe it's to make you think it went longer, they still cut stuff out of this 90-second match. Whatever. So Hayde gets physical with Zebra, security swarm the ring, officials and Alex run out from the back with Alex laying in some quote-unquote real punches and kicks to get over that this is a shoot. And then Hayde gets dragged out of the building by security and the match is ruled a no contest. And then they say there's going to be the rematch of British Uprising 2, as we covered. And then that doesn't happen. Yes.
No.
Back to John for him to, again, give away the finish of a match that hasn't aired yet. And it is Flash Barker versus Hayde Vanson from Uprising 2. Again, cover this on the Uprising 2 episode. I'm not watching it again.
Did you see, though, Kieran, I don't know if you're up to this point yet, but the promo videos?
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. I still think this whole Angler match is just crap. So the fans have been cheated out of Flash versus Zebra for the third time. It's an angle that nobody bought. A shoot-type finish. All of this is half an hour after they'd just seen a bloke get accidentally flamethrowed at the end of a long and miserable hardcore match. This was a horrible, hour and a half of wrestling they'd had to sit through in the middle of this show.
I weren't sitting through this match again.
No.
I remember when we watched it a couple of shows ago, it was fucking terrible, weren't it?
Yeah, it's really dull. Ad break, and then, yes, the crap music video you mentioned. This one is pushing the Hayden Zebra feud over the All England title that hasn't properly started yet. For some reason, every time there's text on screen, one letter flashes to the beat of the music.
I noticed one of the letters was it might have been for Hayden Vanson, where it was like a dollar sign. I thought that was
it?
Yeah, like a.
Oh, I didn't even notice. I was just like, why the fuck is it flashing?
What I did want to ask you, the music on this one.
Yes.
You're gonna say it was like someone play music in a garage from somewhere who was involved with the FWA, but I thought it was a bit Pearl Jam.
This is get used to this. This is Citizen Smith. This is
it's Citizen Smith again.
Yep. Yes, indeed. The song is called Lenny's Song or some kind of something because for some reason Ralph had a habit of retitling and re-releasing Citizen Smith songs.
Right. I did put it was less Pearl Jam, more Pearl Spam.
That's just Paul's voice, man. That's what he sounds like.
It was a good knockoff, though.
Yeah. I quite like a lot of Citizen Smith stuff. I used to listen to a lot of it. I think I have everything they ever released. Like, Ralph would just give me copies of the CDs. Mostly because he wanted it to be used on the TV show.
The Point of No Return, the remix.
The words that flash on the screen. Vanson, Zebra, a battle for pride, a battle for Britain, a battle for all of England, a battle for the All England Championship. Someone was busy with this one.
Was there a moment here where they were talking about to this day
Yes, so that's exactly what I'm going to get to. So John says, even to this day, many still believe that Hayde Vanson had a man inside the FWA tip him off and tell him to turn up to Uprising 2 with his full wrestling gear. Fingers have been pointed left, right and centre. However, chief suspect remains Vanson's former trainer, Alex Shane.
Ooh, suspense.
He then segues into talking about Alex Shane and Ulf Herman, and we get clips of the show swearers beating the Pitbulls for the tag title at London Calling on October the 25th, 2002.
That venue looked terrible, didn't it?
That's Walthamstow Civic Hall.
Oh, the home of like bloody... Yeah, or when New Japan come over and all that.
I mean, you say when New Japan came over, when Rev Pro ran a couple of shows in there with some New Japan talent on it. I think that's where they did Ishii versus... No, that's where they did Shibata versus Chris Hero.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That match is really good. That venue is fucking boiling. I haven't been there for a while, but I seem to recall there was no kind of aircon, no fans. If it was hot, it was hot. Like, do not go there in the summer. Yeah, it wasn't shot great. It was kind of their London base for a while. It's fine as a wrestling venue. It's like a 400-seater maybe, size of Broxbourne. Yeah, it's fine. So then we go off to Crunch 2003, which John mistakenly calls 2002. This is, in fact, from March 16th, 2003. He explains that the Pitbulls, now managed by Greg Lambert, were scheduled for a rematch, but guest ring announcer Nikita finds out that that's not the case. Apart from the snippets that I put in hype videos, this is the only footage from Crunch 2003 that's ever seen the light of day. So, Nikita announces the Pitbulls, but out comes Greg, who says the Pitbulls were just to get Alex's attention, and as the crowd chants something very unpleasant at him, he introduces his real charges, the family. He says they are a group of men who have been continually screwed over by the FWA because managing director Alex Shane continually shows favouritism to himself and his friends, like Nikita. He does some berating on the mic, and then he sensationally reveals the scoop that she and Alex are in a relationship. And he says she slept her way to the top. So she slaps him, but turns around into that fantastic Paul Travell spine buster. And then the family grab her for the sacrifice chair shot. They hold her to ransom as Lambert demands Shane come out, and he and Herman do. They're hesitant to approach the ring as Brandon Thomas is still holding a chair over Nikita, who's being restrained by Ash and Ian Disciple. Greg says Shane, in his capacity as managing director, has to make a match. Alex and Ulf versus the family. No DQ for the tag titles right now, or they'll brain Nikita with that chair. Shane says, "Let her go and you've got it, Lambert, you piece of shit." Lambert says, "That's fair enough. We've got the match. We'll let her go." And Ash and Disciple release their hold on her. And Lambert goes, "Oh, sorry, I normally tell the truth. The truth just lied." And Thomas smashes her in the face with the chair. What made this is something you can hardly see in this edit because it's shown from the hard cam. But in the Uprising 2 hype video, I used one of the ringside shots, and it's Ash's reaction. So he's the newest member of the family. He joined the group earlier that night, and he's got his hands up in his hair like he can't believe they would stoop that low. Like, oh my God, what have I joined? It's great. And then Alex and Ulf hit the ring, clean house, and we go into commentary-free, thank God, clips of show swearers versus the family. Despite it being no DQ, genius referee Andy Coyne still 5 counts Scott Parker for being on the top rope. And I did like Parker hits this diamond dust and just yells at Alex, "Show swear that, you son of a bitch." Alex takes 2 goes at a Shane Station because Scott's legs are the wrong side of the ropes after getting crotched on the turnbuckle. Is getting crotched on the turnbuckle the only transition in the FWA? It happens I swear, it happens in every single match. I'm going to make it part of the FWA drinking game.
It's a bit like the AEW dive to the outside and go to a break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was what was I watching recently? I think it might have been Collision last week or Dynamite. I noticed that Excalibur was itching to throw to a break, but both guys were still in the ring, and then one guy throws the other out and dives on top of him, and Excalibur immediately announces he had break. So funny. We cut to near the finish. Shane is setting up half a table in the corner while Alex tries to revive Parker in the opposite one. He turns around and comes face to face, or rather face to sternum with Shane, and does the family pose to try and turn him. Alex mimics him and then boots him and hoists him up for the one night stand. Greg, I laughed at this. Greg does some hilarious screaming. No, put me down. It's so funny.
Here in one of my notes is Greg screaming like a wimp was a laugh.
Yes. Perfect. But that's what he's supposed to be. He's a journalist. He's not a wrestler.
Yeah.
Solid Gold saves him, shoves Alex into another Travell spinebuster through the piece of table. Parker then hits the golden arrow, Travell hits the bloodshot splash, and Parker pins Shane with one finger to give the family the tag title. We don't see it, but I think this is also the match where Travell accidentally smashed the Crown of Wolves head open hard way with a chair, resulting in him being booked to take a revenge chair shot every night of the British Breakout Tour. Something I've been meaning to mention, actually, the FWA actually had some gimmick chairs. So they were 10 quid from Habitat, and they would give them to photographer Amy Hanifan's dad, who was a metal worker. And he moulded a load of replacement seats in thin tin. So he would take out the steel one, replace it with tin, and spray paint the chair. So you knew, for example, the black chairs could take weight, but the silver ones were okay for bonking people on the turnip. They made this great noise, they folded in half impressively, and they hurt much less than the steel ones. And when the seat inevitably broke, you just send it back to him to put a new one in.
Wow.
Very good.
This was all well and good until large referee Steve Cox, working security before he was a ref, went to take a rest on one of the silver ones at ringside in the middle of a match in Newport, I think, and went straight through the thing. I just heard this crashing noise behind me and turned around to see Steve in a heap on the floor, like surrounded by what was left of a chair.
But I suppose when obviously like Old Furman's there every night, it, cut on costs. Good on him with that one.
Yeah, it was a very smart idea, particularly if he was banging like Travell over the head all the time. I think it's quite a shame that all of this segment isn't available because I think it's really good. It cements the family as a force and as a bunch of like cheating bastards of like this swarm of like horrible little ants, and like Greg is such a little toad on the microphone.
But this like with Nikita, when she was a ring announcer, was this like the one and only time?
No, they did it 2 or 3 times.
Right. What, like a similar like angle? Just to bring out like
so they do it with, I think they did it with Stevie Knight interrupting her on one.
Yeah.
And they did this. There might have been one other. I think it was to justify her being on the poster but not actually wrestling on the show.
Right.
One of the good things I liked about the whole thing, because I was wondering, was it kind of a thing they'd done consistently to bring Nikita in, as you were kind of discussing as well.
Mm.
But the family versus the kind of the show swearers and Nikita and stuff like that, I've enjoyed it actually. It's quite good.
Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it because we've got more to come. This whole episode's been going quite well so far, but the editor fucks it up with a tiny flash of John in the wrong aspect ratio as we head into the break. And then when we come back, Atkins throws to Alex, Shane, Ulf Herman and Nikita versus the family from Frontiers of Honor. Do you think over the course of these shows they have managed to show all of British Uprising 1 and all of Frontiers of Honor?
Yeah.
For the most part. We seem to be going back to those shows a lot. So this match starts with all the non-participating family members being sent off to the back. So their team is Paul Travell, Scott Parker and Brandon Thomas. Travell and Nikita start the action at quite a pace. Like, she's arm dragging all over the place. She gets a rolling sunset flip out the corner. He, of course, wrecks her with that spine buster. And I maintain nobody has better chemistry with Nikita than Paul Travell. Like, they were just natural opponents. Brandon Thomas chucks her around with backbreakers until she can hit a dropkick off the middle rope and tag Alex. Thomas does the family crucifix pose, and Tony Giles comes out with the Messiah making the sign of the crucifix. That may scare Dracula, but it's not going to scare the show stealer. They do a very long sequence of reversals to get into the check up from the neck up, and I had this memory flash that they would add something to this sequence with every subsequent match, so it wasn't the same each time. So the first time they ever did it, it was just the normal move. And then the next match, they would add a couple of reversals in to the point where you would get this, like 30 seconds of them doing stuff, and then eventually Alex hitting the move. Thomas escapes a choke bomb, tags Parker, who runs into one, and immediately gets legitimately knocked out. If you look at his body, he goes stiff as a board. Coyne gets him out of the ring, and Travell runs in to keep the match going. Alex tags Ulf, who after some test of strength messing about, no-sells some comedy punches and takes Travell's head off with a big boot. Cut to later in the match. If you want to see Kat's balcony dive, Shane's one night stand off the stage through a table, or Travell's tornado DDT off the set, you've got to buy the VHS. You don't get that on TV for free. So Travell clips out Herman's knee and he gets hung up in a tree of woe, followed by Scott Parker saving the subsequent Van Terminator spot as Ash fell off the top rope trying to do his own, and it was expertly edited out. I think I mentioned when we did the 2003 show, Scott Parker once said to me, I didn't know I could do that until I did it, and I was knocked out, so I don't even remember doing it. Nikita returns to the ring, gets hit with Travell's brilliantly named Sacrificial Slam, which London tries to claim is on the chair she is almost 2 feet away from. She rolls away from the Bloodshot Splash, but gets whip reversed into the ref in the corner in a hardcore match. She flips out the Sacrificial Slam into a reverse neck breaker, gets a visual pin on Travell, but Coin is down. Everybody's favourite Ian Disciple runs in, swaps places with Paul because they're both bald, wellies Nikita with a tag belt and pins her. The bit I love about this is the immediate post-match camera shot that runs down this trail of bodies from the ramp to the apron.
Yeah.
Like showing the carnage. That's the work of a guy called Russ. He was an excellent cameraman. The bulk of this match has been cut out. Like, all of the weapon stuff is gone. The stuff that's left is still good, I think. And for my money, the whole thing is one of the better family versus Alex and Friends hardcore tags.
Yeah, I just had a thought then, like Frontiers of Honor. You got Low Key, Samoa Joe, Homicide, Ian Disciple.
All the stars are here.
I love he gets the pin and then does like an army crawl out the ring as quickly as he possibly can.
Yeah.
Like there's no dive in this, and there's kind of other things, and you're kind of, again, it's heavily clipped, but it gives you kind of a little bit of an idea, I guess, of how they go.
I mean, it's just telling the story that the family keep winning by overwhelming Alex and his friends with numbers and by being sneaky and cheating. Like, they can't beat these two giants in a straight up match, even with all the weapons in the world. Yeah. But they can use their brains and their superior numbers to keep winning.
Yeah.
Abrupt cut back to Atkins, who then throws to our last match, which is Alex, Shane and Ulf Herman versus the family, the first blood match from Vendetta. Which we covered in the 2003 digest. Andy doesn't look happy about this.
Yeah, no, I fast-forwarded through this one. They did mention, though, John Atkins, the Apocalypse Grudge match was too violent to show.
Yes, that is later on. It also wasn't that double barbed wire match with the stupid finish I had to sit through for 2003. This is the match that comes out of the piss blood from your head and shit your pants promo. Yeah. It's 5 minutes of clips, mostly the beginning and the end. John, of course, gives away the Raj Ghosh twist finished in his intro, which was Raj disarming Lambert of the commemorative decanter that had been presented to the FWA at the start of the show. And he turns and smashes it over all said to cut him open and join the family. And then, as Andy mentioned, Atkins says the feud was settled at Uprising 2 in the Apocalypse Grudge match, but due to the violent and graphic nature of the match, they can't show it on TV. Nothing to do with it being really boring then. He explains the stipulation was that if the family won, Alex and Ulf are gone, but if Ulf and substitute partner Mikey Whipwreck won, Greg would have to take a chair shot from Ulf Herman. And we then do a horrible cut through the FWA logo into a 3-minute Alex Shane promo shot on Sumner's green screen, as Andy rightfully pointed out, looking like he's just been cut out in Photoshop. This is him explaining his heel turn. It basically boils down to him saying he sacrificed everything to be the managing director while also being a wrestler. He says he selflessly booked other people in higher positions than him. He could have put the title on himself, could have booked himself against all the imports, but instead he promoted the company all over the country and on national radio. He thought the fans appreciated what he was doing, but all he hears them chant is Ulf WA.
Sounds very much like Cody Rhodes in AEW, this.
I think, to be fair, we do call it the Shane verse. With the kind of black and white shots of bits and certain things, it feels like he's doing like a Hulk Hogan joining the NWO type of promo. He's trying to interlink with this.
They did that because they were cutting stuff out of it and cutting together more than one take, I do believe, of this.
Right.
He goes on to say Ulf is the very reason they haven't gone national and don't have a terrestrial TV deal, which is a hell of a thing to say the week before your internationally available satellite show starts proper, because he won't stop swearing and using weapons. He says he went to the board of directors to get Ulf fired, but they wouldn't go along with it because he was popular and sold tickets. So the only way he could get Ulf gone was to take him out himself and break his arm. He says with Herman out of the way, it's time for a new era of the FWA, and it's time to fear because the show stealer is here. This made a shocking amount of storyline sense for an Alex Shane promo.
Competent.
And that is the end of the profiles. I think this one was the best of them because it actually guided you through a pair of storylines, and the Vanson segment was a natural progression from the Zebra and Flash stuff last week. However, on this hour-long show, Hayde Vanson got 15 minutes. The rest was all Alex Shane.
Of course. Managing director.
Just quickly, did either of you think there was one thing in particular that was missing from this episode?
No.
Oh, God, I'm stuck. No? You don't see the chair shot. You don't see the turn on Ulf Herman.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you put that in?
Probably too violent, like everything else.
No, it's no more. It's no more violent than anything else you've seen on this episode.
Listen, if you can't show the
and
match,
even if you don't see the actual moment, the actual chair shot, you can still like show like I don't know freeze frames of him holding a chair over Ulf or anything like that.
Yeah.
You don't see the turn.
No, you don't.
So yeah, go on then. Let's wrap this up. How do we feel about these episodes?
Burchill and Nikita was the best one.
Okay,
100%. Good action where the new breed are shown getting twatted. Nikita had a couple of good matches. That was an easy one to fly through. What were the other one? Flash Barker and Zebra Kid.
Yeah.
It was just there for me. Because we'd seen quite a lot of the stuff before. 5-star belt, and I wasn't interested in. Hayde Vanson, even though I did like that opening, promo thing where he's getting booted out of the venue. I think the rest of it, I can see like where they were trying to do a hot storyline with him, but it just felt a bit forced. And when you intertwine that with the matches with Zebra Kid and Flash Barker being involved, it was altogether a bit shit. The Alex Shane promo was a welcome thing at the end because it was something different, and I think John Atkins had gone making a brew and like, I'll fill in for you, John. Don't worry, I'll do me do a 3-minute link. But I will say, in conclusion, I'm glad that we're on to the proper shit again.
This is why. Do you see why I wanted to condense all of these episodes into just 2 shows rather than dragging it out any further?
Yeah.
I can only echo about the episodes and being glad they're over. I think, the concept is good. The kind of presentation and how it's been done is just not landed as much. I think also maybe because we've seen some of the matches and stuff like that, there's been stuff that's been interesting to see and things. This one, I probably would go the Show Stealer Vanson one at the top, then the Nikita one, and then the right bottom one would be the Barker one. Because I felt just that, but I'm glad we're now on to TV, put it that way. Much more entertaining than what these were.
I would say as though it's an introduction to anyone who's not watched the FWA. They serve a purpose to get you hyped for the...
They do, but as we've discussed, a lot of them are just here are matches, and it's only really the last one that tells you the stories. I also think they needed one more episode. The family. They're the big heel group of the FWA. Well, I guess Alex by himself is the big heel group of the FWA now, but like they're also the tag team champions. So your All England champion and your heavyweight champion have both had episodes, but the family are still a factor going forward into 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, yeah, I too, I'm glad we're clear of these now. It's nothing but episodic narrative TV going forward. The proper stuff. So that's about it, I guess. Linsky, what? Linsky? Jesus Christ. That fucking screen name, you prick. And I'm leaving that. And I'm leaving it in. Eddie Linsky Sideburns. What's the current status of the 5-star wrestling tournament?
Okay. I am jet lagged, so please apologies if I get this mixed up. I've been making deals elsewhere. I think we're up to about over 1 million competitors now. We're getting there. I can't get an exact number just yet, but we're still talking with venues everywhere. Even also potentially doing a comeback at the Devil's Arse for the Breed Wrestling show that I didn't get paid for. But we'll let bygones be bygones. So that's still in the works. You can no longer follow me. You can follow me on X, but I don't tweet anymore on it. It's a retired account. You can follow me on Blue Sky with my name, because again, like Kieran and Dean, only one person has the name Eddie Sideburns, really, if we look at it. And yeah, so you can follow me on that for my hot takes or cold takes, depending on how we go. But yeah.
Tremendous. Andy, what hot and cold takes are running through Graps and Claps at the moment?
So currently, well, you can follow us, Oggy Part 3 on X/Twitter, and also the podcast at GCP Podcast 1. He's mainly on there as an account just to quote tweet stuff and retweet stuff.
That's pretty much why I still have a Twitter account. I just promote this show when it comes out, and that's it.
Yeah. Stuff that we've recently done. We've just had the Christmas special of Muck, which was episode 1 and episode 8 of ITV Celebrity Wrestling from 2005 with What Culture's Michael Hamflett, who suffered through 2 hours of chatting about all things ITV and pop culture back then and shit reality TV shows. Yeah, there's not much else. I got show reviews from like Rev Pro and Tidal, but winding down for the year.
Getting ready for Santa to bring you new stuff for next year. As for this show, you can find everything to do with us at linktr.ee/FWA pod. We are on Twitter, Blue Sky, and YouTube at FWA pod, and Instagram FWA.pod. As for me personally, Twitter can suck my hole, and you can follow Kieran Edits on Blue Sky if you really want. I would like to thank Dean very much for coming to chat with us. He has very much held up this otherwise terrible episode. And thank you for listening. We'll be back next month with what I am calling Season 3, Kieran Learns on the Job. Yes, we'll be covering the first couple of episodes of the FWA's episodic. What's episodic? Does that come out every week but only in audio form? That's a podcast. Episodic wrestling channel show put together by yours truly. I believe I got a minimum of 3 bollockings for episode 1 alone, so tune in next month to hear all about those. Until then, we wish you all an excellent Christmas and New Year, and there's 2 things you can do about it.
A nice day for lovers breakdown, and you know that I don't mind if I do. I ring out roses, 'cause that's where the crabs never come from. Some kind of something adds up to nothing.